Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to yet another edition of the Business Spotlight. I am Scott McMeans with Action Coach. You know me. Well, who you don't know is my guest. And I'm excited to have Evan Delahunty from Peaceful Fruits joining us today. I'm excited to hear his story because if you haven't seen him on TV, you may know him because he has an amazing business that is literally changing the way we think about candy and the way we work or the way people work. So with that being said, Evan, I'd love to turn the microphone and the camera over to you. So tell us your story, introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Scott. It's a pleasure to be on here and just great to be connecting with you and with your audience. And it's not a straight line journey that any of us are on. So I love to share the story and hopefully share with other everyone out there how we're all in it together and we're doing the best we can, and hopefully we can all get to better places by just staying in it and doing our best. So that's what it's been all about over here at Peaceful Fruits, and really appreciate the opportunity to connect with folks around that story.
Awesome. I love it. So tell us a little bit, Evan, about Peaceful Fruits and your mission to reimagine candy and the workforce of, and I love this phrase, good people. So walk us through what is it that you do at Peaceful Fruits? That's one.
Mhm.
And talk about the mission to, again, I love it, reimagine candy, and then the workforce of good people. So the floor is yours. I'd love to hear the story.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started Peaceful Fruits. The idea actually began almost exactly 10 years ago. It's actually almost 10 years to the day since I came up with the idea of Peaceful Fruits. And that means that I should be well on my way to becoming an overnight success, right? 10 years to become an overnight success. I've heard that one. The day is coming soon, but we all know it's not like that, right? It doesn't just magically flip a switch. It's a slow climb up the mountain. But for me, it started with that dream of wanting to build a business that connected people back to Mother Nature and also just connected people around values. And for me, those values started when I was a Peace Corps volunteer living in the Amazon rainforest. That's where the dream for Peaceful Fruits was actually born, was, working with folks there in the jungle, that are trying to build a sustainable economic opportunity for themselves and their families. And me serving as a Peace Corps volunteer, coming from the US, coming from corporate, going into that nonprofit world and seeing, how can we build sustainable opportunities for folks, which really just means how can we meet people where they are and make it easy for them, or easier anyway, easier for them to better themselves and to do the right thing for themselves, their family, their community. And so it was that value set drove me to create Peaceful Fruits, and that idea of using sustainable, healthy, delicious fruit to make products that were better for you and better for the whole community. So, I always joke that I didn't set out to become the fruit snack king of the world or anything. Instead, I wanted to build a company that reflected my values of mission, of profit, of community, and looking at what I knew, who I knew, the resources that I had, I decided to work on fruit snacks as a vehicle to push that dream and those values. So, to get concrete, what we do at Peaceful Fruits is we use 100% fruit to make products that are as healthy and nutritious as real fruit, because that's all they are, but have all the fun, playful, experiential, nostalgic, all that fun of candy. It's the fun of candy, it's the nutrition of fruit, going after that white space in the market between those two aspects so that we can create things that we're happy and excited and joyful to share with the next generation. That's what Peaceful Fruits is all about.
That is an amazing story. The fact that you've built this off of your experiences with the Peace Corps and having some foundation with corporate America, it's really compelling because nobody thinks about changing candy. Like, why would you think about changing candy? Candy is candy, right? But
I
as we
mean,
get more health conscious, right, and we think about what's available to us, it makes complete sense to change candy. It just does.
absolutely. And that's exactly where the brainstorm comes from, right? Is if you think about, the aisles of the store, you picture that grocery store. And by the way, this is actually how I ended up in fruit snacks. Like I said, not my grandma's secret recipe for fruit snacks. I didn't even grow up eating fruit snacks. My mom didn't let me, right? I was one of those kids. Desperately, trading my homemade PB&J for someone else's, you know, Welch's fruit snacks, right? I was that kid. But the point is that when you walk through the grocery store, and I did this looking for an opportunity, and what I saw when I first started was, hey, there's cheap chocolate, and then there's expensive chocolate, and there's, mission-based expensive chocolate, right? You've got the endangered species chocolate, right? And there's cheap coffee, Folgers, whatever, it's fine. There's expensive coffee, and then there's sustainable, child slavery free, happy, sustainable coffee. And then you get to the fruit snacks and the candy, and you're just like, okay, there's Welch's fruit snacks, and there's Starbursts, and there's Reese's peanut butter cups, and they haven't changed since I was a kid, probably since, everyone in the audience was a kid. It's all the same junk. So every other area of the store is evolving, and you started to see that happening with chocolate, right? But it hadn't yet made its way into the rest of that candy and fruit snack world. And by the way, what's the difference between a gummy bear and those Welch's fruit snacks? Marketing. Not much. There's not much fruit in there, guys. So that was where we saw an opportunity on the product side to create something that resonated with those values that I was bringing to it, and something that I could make as a first-time entrepreneur, with connections back to the farmers and to the fruit side of things, that I could build a value-added product that fit that lack, that hole in the market where, hey, everybody's doing this, they haven't done it here yet. That's what Piece of Fruits can do. And that was really that value set, that mentality. That was how I started to build the company. And that's how also we got into the mission side in terms of workforce development, which is very important thing to talk about, because in addition to being about updating candy to offer healthier, more, healthier options that are just as much fun as those candy classics, it's also about offering better mental health and offering a better approach to work. That's also what Peaceful Fruits is all about. And it came from that same philosophy that I mentioned at the very beginning. Serving as a Peace Corps volunteer, what I got to see was the power of meeting people where they are. We all want to make the world a better place. Nobody, not very many people anyway, get up each day being like, how can I make the world a worse place today? Nobody gets up and says that. But we face so many challenges in our day that it's hard to do the right thing. Like when you're on your way to work in the morning, sure, you stop and you hold the door for the grandma. But after a long day of work, when you're tired, you just want to get home. Get out of my way, old lady. Like it's too easy to be selfish, to be short-sighted. You have to make it easier for folks. And so that was where, we want to make sure that with our sourcing, with the way that we make our products, we're making it easier for people to choose a healthier, more sustainable option. But then at the same time, meeting people where they are means it's all about the money, right? You have to be able to create products that people want to buy, that they're willing to pay for. And at the same time, you have to be willing to pay the people in your supply chain a fair wage to be part of that process. And so as I was going through that exercise, with sourcing fruit in the jungle, making products that were worth paying a premium for, all of those different things, to be perfectly frank, it was really hard. And
Yeah.
as a physical products business, anybody out there that works in physical products, like you don't get to just be the CEO behind the screen. Like at a certain point, you're going to be there in the kitchen up to your elbows in fruit snacks, because what else are you going to do, right? And I needed help. I just needed help to do all the physical tasks, to do all the, working in the business kind of stuff that, as a coach, I'm sure Scott often tells his people not to do, right? You got to work on the business, not just in the
Mhm.
business, the classic. But when you're starting out, you have no choice. And I needed help. And it just happened that in one of the very early days of Peaceful Fruits, it was literally standing. I mean, this is almost exactly 10 years ago. I was standing at a farmer's market table giving away samples of product to anybody who would walk by and talk to me. I was that guy, right?
Mm.
Like try this, fill out the survey, tell me what you think, what would you pay for this? Which flavor do you like? That guy, right? Um, And one of the people that got most excited about the product and about the story was a guy named AJ, who was about my age. His mom was a retired Spanish teacher, so they had a lot of connection to South and Central America. And AJ happened to have severe Down syndrome. Um, but he just loved the product. He loved the story. And his mom literally wrote down her name and number on a little scribble piece of paper, and said, "Hey, if you get past this weird farmers market stage and you need help making some products, AJ's a champion stickerer. He's a champion envelope stuffer. We'd love to help you bag and tag product if you need some hands." And a couple weeks later, we got our first order from great local health food store, Mustard Seed, as hopefully folks in your audience are familiar with those guys.
Yeah.
The Neighbors family, great local folks in the food scene, here in Northeast Ohio. And I had to make like hundreds of snacks, and it was the biggest batch I'd ever made, and I needed help. So what did I do? I was like, who can I call? You get your mom, you get your friends, you get anybody you can, and that included AJ and his mom. And they came and they helped. They had fun. We had fun. We got the work done, and then they kept on helping. And little by little, that grew from a kitchen table friend, just that organic relationship with AJ, to his mom leaning over and saying, hey, he gets his services through a great local nonprofit called the Blick Center. There are 10 more folks like AJ there that would love to be helping out with something like this. You should talk with the occupational therapist and see if we can create something. And I was like, wait, 10 more workers? Sure. What, 10 more volunteers? Sure. And so it started off just as a group of people that were helping me out because they wanted to be part of that dream and that mission.
Yeah.
They never thought of themselves. They weren't the mission, right? The mission was the Amazon. The mission was better products. The mission was building an entrepreneurial dream. It wasn't about, at that point, it wasn't about employing adults with disabilities. That wasn't in the mission statement. It was just, these were the people that were helping me to build that dream. And I was blown away and felt like I was taking advantage of them because they were volunteering to help me out. And meanwhile,
Yeah.
the occupational therapist and AJ and all his friends, they felt like they were taking advantage of me because they were like jumping onto my dream, like, oh, like we're part. So it was this incredible synergistic thing where we both felt like we were getting the better, the unfairly
Yeah.
better end of the deal. And that's the win-win, right? That's the definition of win-win. And so, of course, that grew. We started to pay the folks, didn't stay volunteer for long. I'm not that big of a jerk. Um,
You're not a
and
jerk at all, for the
well,
record, Evan.
thank you. I try, but we were able to get some grant dollars to support it, which of course, put your business hat back on. People are gonna you can't ask people to work for free, but if you can get someone else to pay them, like, hey, that's good business. And so, that fast forward to today, where, at every stage of my business, from the Kickstarter campaign to the Shark Tank episode to, the order that we just shipped to, some of our national customers last week, there have been the folks with disabilities supported by the occupational therapy team at Blick Center. They're front and center, part of my operation, helping to get that
Wow.
done. And different levels, different scale, whatever, over the years, but they just became a part of the core of Peaceful Fruits. And again, not because I set out to build, to create jobs for the underserved. It was because I needed help, and these were the people that came to help me. So how can you not love and respect that? And it's been so instrumental to us getting this far and our success thus far.
Well, Evan, I appreciate you taking us down this pathway. And one thing I would say is you've made multiple comments to, I never set out to do what ended up happening. I think what is a testament to you and to the mission that you originally created and had, mission, profit, community, you had that mission. You just didn't know what vehicle it was going to be. And it's interesting that, again, you used the word vehicle before. Didn't know what I wanted to do, but the vehicle ended up being fruit snacks that are going to replace candy. I didn't know how I was going to build a better community, but the vehicle was the Blick Center and the community of people that you have that support you. This is an amazing story that follows your mission, your profit, your community centered idea. And for what it's worth, I don't know if you necessarily understand how that all connected or connects until you talk about it like this,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
This is a
absolutely.
very big part of who you are. And it sets Peaceful Fruits apart from anything else out there, not because you're doing something with the Blick Center, or you have this workforce. It's the mindset behind what you're doing, because there is this focus on your mission, your profit, your community, and you're doing it with two different vehicles. And I think it's a brilliant idea. I think you've done an exceptional amount of good work to get these two things to come together. So I hand you your flowers, sir, because you deserve them.
Well, thank you, Scott. I appreciate it. Yeah.
That's
It's a ton of
fine.
work, right?
No, and that's what makes, I think, entrepreneurship and being bold enough to step out of corporate America and doing something on your own. It's because you get a chance to create something in your own image. And 10 years ago, Evan, I don't think you'd be thinking, I'm going to be on a podcast someday. You're not thinking about that, right? But what brought you here is your success. And now, once we start digging a little bit, we know there's a lot more to Peaceful Fruits than just really good, sustainable candy that is now fruit, right? There's more to that. There's so much more to the story. And I appreciate you telling the story to the audience, because I think it's important for people to realize whenever you start a business, it's not necessarily what you do as a business, it's how you run that business, right? You could have had, as you said, any vehicle support your mission, your profit, your community concept. Just so happened you picked fruit. Okay, great.
Hmm. Hmm.
What if you picked auto mechanics? I don't know. It could have been a different story, but at least you've stayed true to your vision. And I think that is one of the most important things. We've
Yeah,
talked about some
I
good
couldn't agree
things.
more. Yeah, thank you. I couldn't agree more. I mean, to me, that's what I see in my journey and in other people's journey, right, is that where you find success is where you remember that like a business is not a product, right? I talk to students a lot, and they pitch me like,
Yeah.
okay, well, let me tell you about my business idea. Like, you're not telling me about a business, you're telling me about a product, right? A business is about value, right? That's what
Yeah.
like business is about, creating value for someone. And the only way that you create value is by having values. And it's for me, it's starting with those values is what has, has what made it different and has been kind of our guiding star. And certainly, you make mistakes along the way. It's not always an easy journey. It doesn't mean you even end up, getting all the way. That's okay. But if you start with values and you follow values, at least you're always doing something that you're proud of and that is building your career, your community in the right direction. So that's always been, that's what gets me excited to work on things in the morning, right? That's why you get up.
Yeah. No, that's very well said. The idea of, a business is not about a product, it's about the value. In order to create value, you must have values. I don't think I've ever heard it said more articulate, more profound than that. So I appreciate that little nugget that I will move forward using when I have conversations with clients or prospects. One
Sounds
thing I
good.
did want to
We'll
talk to
print
you
the
about.
t-shirt.
Yeah, exactly. Um, what I want to talk about are challenges that you've faced over the course of the last 10 years, whether it's something that you're proud of that you've been able to accomplish, or something that is a challenge that I haven't gotten over it yet, but here's how I'm working through it. Because I'd like the audience to learn from somebody who's been through it or somebody who is going through it, and you haven't stopped getting after it. You're still working through those things. So can you think about a challenge or a lesson that you want people to hear?
Yeah, there's two that I'd love to share with folks. One from sort of the early stage of the business, and one that's today as we continue to grow. And I do differentiate in my when I think about businesses, there is a big difference in this world between small business and between startups. And I think
Mm,
sometimes people use that, like people like to call themselves a startup because it's sexy, or it's sometimes it's kind of negative to say small business or startup, or I don't know, they have different connotations, but I think that's all bullshit. Pardon my French, right? Like
mhm.
it's not that one's better or worse than the other, but they are different, right? Like there are plenty of small business
Yes.
owners that take home way more money than me and have, way better hours. Like my dentist is a small business. He's got a good life. He works like 9 to 3, 3 days a week. He's making plenty of money. He drives a nice car. He doesn't have applesauce on his knees when he comes home from work like I do. I don't know what he has, cleaning people's teeth, but it's not better or worse, but it is different. Um, but the first challenge that I really struggled with, I think, spans both of those. Whether you're a small business, whether you're a startup, either way, you're an entrepreneur, you're doing something awesome and cool, and don't let those definitions screw you up. But they do have different types of problems. But one problem that both types of businesses have is that your vision is the most important thing, but it still has to fit the problem. Like you are building your vision, but you have
Mhm.
to fit that vision to the problems in front of you. And I'm going to give an embarrassingly stupid example because this is where one of the things that really made it harder on me and on Peaceful Fruits for those first, 2 years of when I was sort of working on it part-time, sort of dreaming about it, that really kept it from becoming a full-time business, a true startup for a couple of years and kept it in that hobby mode longer than it should have maybe, which we can just do the exercise. It's really simple, right? When I started Peaceful Fruits, I wanted to create, and if you've seen the Shark Tank episode, I set out to create fruit snacks made from superfood acai, wild harvested, sustainable, amazing superfood, most popular superfood in the world 20 years ago, 10 years ago, still today, acai superfood berry. And I was going to make fruit snacks out of acai. Cool, differentiated, great. Let's do the business case real quick. Scott, you're on the spot here. Who is the main consumer, the main target market for acai superfood berries?
No idea. I would imagine it's children.
Well, for acai berries, probably not. Who is it for? But who is it for fruit snacks? Definitely
Ch-
children, right?
Children, right?
And
Yeah.
that's the problem, right? Superfood acai berries, you don't know, right? You're like, I don't know. Because but for fruit snacks, 100% children. Everyone knows, no doubt, right? Fruit snacks definitely kill children. Acai, not sure. Maybe it's the yoga
Yeah.
mom. Maybe it's the millennial. Like it's not
The
a
yoga
clear
mom.
slam dunk. Fruit snacks definitely for kids. And so now here you are trying to create a product where like the vehicle, the fruit snack, the form factor perfectly fits the audience. Yep, sell it to kids. Sell it to health conscious moms that want to give their kid a better fruit snack. But acai, is it helping you to do that? Or is it in the way of you doing that? And it turns out it's in the way. It turns out it's 100% in the way. And because that was my jumping off point where I wanted to, work with acai from the region where I was a Peace Corps volunteer and blah, 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 blah. I was so focused on the
Hmm.
acai that I thought that was critical. I tried to push that down my customers' throats to say, "Oh, like that's what's so cool about this is that it's got acai in it." And meanwhile, what they kept telling me is that no, this is cool because my kids will eat it and it doesn't have sugar and corn syrup and red 40 and all these dyes in it. And I don't really care if it's acai or apples. I just like that it isn't junk.
Right.
And here I am, like fighting this battle, trying to make acai a perfect slam dunk fit for kids, which, yeah, it kind of, maybe, sure, whatever, but fruit snacks. Kids like fruit snacks. If you make the fruit snack out of acai, maybe, maybe, but you're forcing it. You're not listening to your customer. And it took me 2 years of banging my head against that to realize that what the customer liked best about our products was our approach, our values, our clean label, our flavors. The acai was not a critical part of that vehicle, of that product to the consumer. And we had to then figure out how do I maintain the vision, maintain the values that started this, because it's the same thing, right? I didn't set out to start an acai company.
Yeah.
That wasn't my goal, right? I'm not trying to start there are people that like I have some good friends that run a food truck making acai bowls because they wanted to start an acai company. Awesome. Definitely do that. Great. Great small business. Great startup. Who knows? That wasn't me. I didn't want to start an acai business, but I got so focused on that one piece of the vehicle that it really slowed me down, right? Because it took me a while to let that go and maintain everything else that I wanted, but also focusing on what my customers were telling me that they actually wanted,
Yeah.
which was updating candy, updating fruit snacks, making it the right way so that they were happy for their kids to eat it.
This, Evan, is a fantastic example of pushing a feature on somebody that nobody really knows, understands, or cares about until you tell them the benefit. So it's
Right.
almost as if The benefit was it's clean, it's good, it's sugarless, it's got great taste, beautiful. Pushing the fruit as opposed to the benefit got in the way.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And it
great
turns out,
lesson learned.
absolutely. And it turns out, what's more expensive, apples or acai? Acai is a lot more expensive. So here I am like
Yeah.
pushing, I'm like, you're asking me for a car to get from point A to point B, and I'm trying to sell you a Porsche, and you're just like, actually, I don't even need a car. Like, I'll take the bus. I just need to get from point A to point B. You don't even need to sell me a car. Give me a damn bus ticket. I'm like, no, no, superfoods, blah, blah, we're getting,
Uh,
They're like this. So the point is, yeah, you have to listen and you have to know what's critical to your vision, what's critical to your values, and what
mhm.
is just another piece of the vehicle that maybe you can strip down and refocus more. So that was really an early stage lesson that I think applies to anybody out there starting something. Like if you're running into resistance, is it the kind of thing that you need to push through, or is it the kind of thing you need to listen to?
I love that. Push through or listen to. That's really good. What is it that you want to talk about for today? Is
Yeah,
there a
so
challenge
the
that you would today?
absolutely, absolutely. So, switching gears now to more of the startup world where I live, that is what Peaceful Fruits is trying to be is, we're not trying to be a small business, with a store and a stall and that the my as I mentioned, those folks with a food truck. Nothing absolutely wrong with that, but that's not what we're trying to build. We're trying to build a national brand that can reimagine and evolve the candy section to be truly better for you in a new and exciting way. That's what Peaceful Fruits is trying to build. And again, not better or worse. I think people get too turned up on that sometimes. Uh, but for us, that's what we're about. And one of the things that we've struggled with, and it's really only in the last year and a half that even though I just talked about that difference between a small business and a startup, I didn't really have it in my head, right? I'm a kid from the Midwest, you're grounded, you're doing things, you read all this stuff about, the West Coast venture capitals and, New York money and blah, blah, blah. But you just kind of have this idea that small business doing things right, growing brick by brick, that it's going to be enough. Uh, and the reality is, it's an important foundation, but it takes a ton of resources to build a national brand. It takes a ton of resources to build something that can scale to that level, which is why that shouldn't always be your goal. Um, but literally, I was meeting with someone much smarter than me, much more experienced as an entrepreneur than me, and he's like, Evan, like you're laying out these plans, these ideas, like the traction that you have is phenomenal. Like you've done so much with so little. Like, why aren't you trying to raise $5 million right now? Like like you're trying to raise 500,000. Like that's dumb. Like 500,000 is not enough to do what you're setting out and like you have a lot of the building blocks to build a national brand, but like you need to raise 5 million, not 500,000. Like, why aren't you doing that? It's like, oh, and the answer that popped out of me, which don't ever say this, in a meeting with a venture capitalist, but like the answer that popped out of me was because I don't know how. I don't know how to raise $5
Yeah,
million. dollars. I don't know who that is I talk to. I don't know how to, I've never done it, right? I've never done that. I pitched all the time. I pitch all the time. I win pitch contests, whatever. I've never pitched at that level for that thing, even though it's there in the deck, it's there in the projections, but somehow you've never true I at that point had not truly asked for the resources that it takes to do what I was saying I wanted to do, which is it's this weird disconnect, right? Where like you only ever get what you ask for. And you kind of pitch here, but then ask here, like
yeah.
there's a disconnect, right? There's a disconnect. And some of that is just the nature of entrepreneurship where, you're always pitching here, but asking here to a certain degree, right? Like, you can't ask for $100 million on day one. If your income is only, your revenue is only here, right? You have to pitch the plan, but there has to be a pathway. And I realized that, the pitch was here, but the ask was out of sync with it. And that's what I've been working on over the last 18 months is figuring out how do we get those two things to align? Because, otherwise I'm never going to get to that level. if we don't start asking for the resources that it takes to get to that level, right?
Well, and one thing a note that I wrote down here is bigger dreams require a bigger ask,
It's a great
right?
way to put it. You get the
And
t-shirt this time.
when you're trying to build something on your vision, it's hard to limit it to just a profile when there's a whole landscape to take a look at. And
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
a profound lesson that I think young people starting out, young businesses starting out, whether they're an old or a young person starting them, is realizing that when you have an opportunity, take it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's where, the Midwest, the small business mentality that we rightly respect and elevate here in the Midwest, and and even those pitch contests that I mentioned, like I think that's where those do entrepreneurship a disservice, right? Because I have one pitch contest, right, where it's this weird thing where they want you to pitch, $1 million idea, a big idea, and blah blah blah, but then you have to have a slide where it says how their $10,000 is going to make a big difference in your dream, and you're just like,
Yeah.
you just told me to pitch a giant idea, and then you want a budget slide for how I'm going to spend $10,000. Like, I'm going to spend it in a second. Like, they're setting you up for that disconnect because you can only ask the pitch contest for $10,000. So, it's like
Right.
training you to not have that, that right impulse.
It's
Yeah,
training you to
yeah,
get into a box, and that's
it,
not what
it,
an
it,
entrepreneur should be.
exactly. So it's really being honest with yourself and figuring out how to draw that path for yourself and for others. And that's a challenge. It takes a long time, at least for me, it took me a long time to wrap my head around that. Uh, and to, I mean, I remember saying in a meeting, like, oh, I'm not asking you for $2 million today. Like, that would be crazy. Like, I should have been asking them for $2 million too, you
Yeah,
know?
to build
But
it.
yep.
Listen, Evan, I am overwhelmed and overjoyed that you were part of the program. There's so much information and obviously passion that came through the screen today. So I want to thank you for your time. Any final words? We've got a minute left. Is there any final words you'd like to bring to the audience?
I think I just want to encourage, everybody out there, like if you have that dream, that vision, the important thing you know, is not what that last slide looks like. It is about the journey to get you there. And the only way that you can create that journey is by starting. So I encourage everybody, find a way to start, whether that's that stall at the farmer's market, or if it's joining someone else's startup or someone else's small business, but find a way to start so that you can begin to build that journey and to build that pathway. That's what it takes.
Absolutely perfect advice for anyone trying to start their business and climb throughout the many challenges and mountains they'll face in their journey. Evan, I want to thank you for being here. This has been an exceptional episode, and all the information that anybody will need will be in the description down below. And we will see everybody on the next episode of Business Spotlight. Evan, thank you so much.
My pleasure, Scott. Thanks for having me.